You're streaming?
Yes, we're all set.
All right. Well, today is Tuesday, the 17th of February, 2026. We are starting our energy subcommittee. We have a couple of bills that we're going to talk about. And just for all those people at home, the thousands and thousands and thousands of people that are watching us, and for those that are on the call, we're just talking today. We will not be voting on either one of these bills. Just some of the bills are a little more complex, and so the idea of us getting more familiar with the subject matter, so we're more comfortable with our votes later down the line, is really the point of this. So it's just pretty relaxed. Don't worry about asking questions that you aren't familiar with or you're concerned about. There are folks on the call that will help us kind of get through them. And again, we're not voting on anything, so no pressure here except to kind of learn and better understand what these are. So, Steve, if it's okay, can we start with Delegate Lehman's bill, House Bill 540? Do you want to kind of give a brief and then we can kind of talk? I know we have some amendments on that bill as well, so we can do a brief and some of the amendments and then we can just chat.
Sure. If you would like me to discuss, I can either go over the summary as the bill is introduced or the bill as with the sponsor amendments attached to clean up there was a little bit of inconsistency in the language in the bills introduced, so I can go either way you prefer.
Why don't you start with broad stroking the bill? I think we just heard it last week, so it'll probably be in most people's memory, the Transparency Act, and then just quickly go from that to the updated amendments we have and how what posture that puts the bill in now. Sound good?
Sure. So as introduced, basically a public service company, in this case, an investor-owned gas, electric, or gas and electric company, unless otherwise ordered by PSC, couldn't initiate a proceeding that may lead to a rate change unless it notifies customers of the proceeding and prepares and publishes a 10-year rate trend report that meets specified requirements. It did a couple other things too related to sending information in emails and or bill inserts, and required PSC to develop and publish an annual rate report for each of those public service companies, and allowed OPC to bring a case, actually required OPC to bring a case to PSC if it determines an annual rate report contained incorrect or misleading information. The sponsor amendments sort of adjust some of the administrative processes there, and in my opinion, sort of I can walk through the bill like as amended, sort of what it does as amended, and I think it's a little more clear of like the processes that are, currently under consideration from the sponsor amendment.
That sounds great, Steve. Thank you. Let's just go
Okay.
through as amended.
Okay. So I'll start up sort of like everything flows, in my opinion, everything flows from the Public Service Commission beginning or by January 1, 2028 and annually thereafter in consultation with OPC, has to develop and publish an annual rate report for each investor-owned electric, gas, or gas and electric company. Then, once that report is written, that report then is used and published. That is then used to communicate to customers in the bill. So each investor-owned electric, gas, or combination company must distribute the company's annual rate report to each retail customer in a bill insert each year, post the annual rate report on its website, and include a statement about the Public Service Commission, and like you can track the cases on its website in a retail customer's bill and automatic payment email. So basically the PSC in consultation with OPC creates this rate report, and then that gets sent out annually and sort of on an ongoing basis, depending on the requirement, to customers, so that customers are given multiple opportunities to see this information. Additionally, it's similar language to the bills introduced. The companies are prohibited from initiating a proceeding that may lead to a rate change unless it notifies customers of the proceeding through a bill insert or an email, includes and it must include in the bill insert or email the portion of the annual rate report that is sort of relevant to whatever the case is. And again, the OPC must bring a case if it determines that an annual rate report contains incorrect or misleading information. So I mean, it's a similar overall process as to the bill is introduced. Just as I described it here, I think it starts with the PSC creating the report, and the PSC is the one creating every report in the bill. With the sponsor amendments, there is no utility creating a report. The utility is pointing to the PSC report. That's what got cleaned up via amendment, in my opinion.
Okay. Vice Chair Guyton.
I think just quickly, is that the only change in the sponsor amendments? My staff is looking for these. I don't know if you sent them to us or not, but we haven't been able to find them. Have you sent us the actual amendments?
If they weren't distributed to the rest of the subcommittee, I apologize. I thought I was on a distribution list that included them, or
We'll
that
get them.
included you all.
Okay, yeah, because I would
We
like
don't
to
have it yet. We'll get them to you.
look for those. Yeah, look at those. Thank you.
Sure. Delegate Stein.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Steve, could you clarify for me maybe I'm just missing it, the annual rate report that you're referring to, was that in the original bill or was that added? Because I see about the 10-year rate
Yes.
change trend.
So I have the reprint on my screen. We can look at it if you like. I was going to share screen for the next bill. If we want to just look at it rather than talk about it, I'm happy to do that for everyone here if you would like to.
Yeah,
If not,
I mean,
in general, it's sort of the amendment, the 10-year rate trend report specific requirement was removed, and it's just one type of report in the bill as amended. Like in the bill as introduced, there were maybe two types of reports. In the bill as amended, it's just the one type. It's just the one report. It's sort of consolidated down.
okay. All right. Thank you.
Delegate Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I didn't see the reprint either, Steve, so I'm sort of guessing and looking at this thing like if we're looking at a 10-year map, for lack of a better word, would it not just be almost perfectly flat? Then all of a sudden, the last 2 years, it pops up real high. If we're just looking at the numbers, parenthetical.
I think the rate trend is, for most companies, is a bit of a, actually, Office of People's Counsel has the history on it, but they do increase pretty much year over year. The total bills are a little bit different in the mid-teens as the supply piece was shrinking while distribution rates were increasing. But in general, the trend, it's not just the last couple years. There's movements every year,
Right.
and it's not just the last 2 years that there's been movement.
But will the last 2 years have a larger spike than the previous 8?
The total bill, I believe so, and that is partially because multiple components of the bill are increasing at once,
Right.
rather than some components of the bill increasing, while others are maintaining and or shrinking, depending.
Okay. Thank you.
Delegate Naraki.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Steve, maybe this is a question for you, or maybe it's just a broader policy question. I like the idea of transparency. Is there a reason that we are only wanting this to apply to investor-owned utilities? Is there a reason that we wouldn't want all companies, including non-investor-owned, to show this to their customers? Just trying to wrap my head around that in the bill here.
I think it's a good go. I would just say I think it's a good question. We have not heard from the sponsor why it didn't, but we can reach out to her and see. Steve, I don't know, is there something that maybe you know that I do not?
I mean, in general, the investor-owned utilities are the largest utilities
Yeah.
and the most they have the largest resources to do this sort of reporting. Some of the municipal utilities or some of the electric co-ops, particularly two of them, are quite small.
Mhm.
So, and I think that is one reason that you would do this way. But these are the largest, most sophisticated companies.
And
But
those,
I'm not speaking for the sponsor here.
Yeah, no, Steve, that's totally fair.
and Delegate, I would also say that those, as you know, or maybe not, that though they run very lean.
Sure, yeah, and
Yeah, they are
I'm not casting
smooth and lean.
aspersions,
Yeah.
in any direction. I'm just
No, it's a good question, and either am I. It's a very good question. Andreas, maybe you have an idea. I see your hands up.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. No, I just wanted to to the delegate's question. It's a very good question, and it's a very good idea of having transparency on all the energy producers. Let's put it that way, energy companies here. The reality is also that normally an investor-owned utility might have a bigger impact on the information for our state because the majority of the state is covered by industry owned. So you get better information. You don't get complete information if you don't include everyone. I agree with you in that. And also, normally investor-owned utilities increase year over year might be bigger than the co-ops and municipalities just because of the structure of these entities and how they can actually go around to try to get the rates up while the investors own have, they go through the PSC. So it's a different mechanics on how you see that increase as well.
sure, and thank you for that, and I appreciate that. I'm just sitting here thinking if I'm an individual in St. Mary's County or somewhere on the Eastern Shore that I might want to have the same level of transparency inside of my bill that others in other parts of the state may have if this moves forward. So that's the only reason I wanted to throw that out there, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you. And then Ben, I have a question for you. Ben, not Jeremy, but Ben Baker, I have a question for you. Ben, you there?
Yes, sorry about that. I was switching devices. My apologies.
No worries. So in your letter of information, it states that there may be or likely an impact on ratepayer with the amendments, and I don't know if we've gotten you the amendments ahead of time, but can you maybe elaborate or guess as to, do you have an idea as to what that might look like with the amendments, or do you want to get back to the, again,
I would need to see it after the amendments because it sounds like there's been a big change.
Yeah.
I could be wrong, so I'd want to see that. But effectively, the bill impact discussion is around development of materials and mailing. So I'm not like that's the kind of cost we're talking about here. So really, it'd be I would say for the physical mailing, printing and mailing is probably where most of the cost would be with this.
Right. And so if we transition some of this to a link to Public Service Commission website that talked in detail about what the rate may or may not do and listing what the Public Service Commission does with potential updated dates into when hearings may be, that would potentially significantly decrease the ratepayer exposure or liability. Is that correct?
Yeah,
And you got to look at it. We'll get you the amendments and then you can take it back to your shop. But that was one of the ones I wanted to see because I see in your letter.
Yeah.
Right? And we're doing everything we're doing is all about kind of keeping it down on the ratepayer. So
yeah,
just education and ratepayer. Okay. Is there anybody else that has any questions on the bill? Otherwise, we're going to hold it. And, like I said, this is a work group meeting. We're not voting on anything today. But if you have any questions, please get them to me or Steve. We'll get you answers. And, and then in the future, we'll kind of get all the amendments and make sure we get all the amendments to everybody ahead of time before the next meeting so that we're, when we tighten this up a little bit. But this is how a nice work group should go. No stress, no stress. Okay, any questions? Nope. Okay, let us move to House Bill 345, Delegate Charkoudian's Affordable Solar Act, which is okay. You all should have the amendments in your inbox already. But anyway, going on to 345. Steve, I know this is a little bit more complex, a little bit larger bill. Do you want to kind of take a stab at the big pieces?
Yes, and for this, I do want to share my screen just to help visualize some things. And I think I would like to start because the bill makes such a large change to the RPS, and this is a new area for the committee, I'd like to take just maybe 5 minutes just to maybe talk about the RPS in general, so that then we can talk about changing it, if that sounds okay to you.
That sounds wonderful. Again, I want to stress to everybody, like this is all new subject matter for a lot of us. We haven't gotten through everything with our briefings. We try to get through a lot, but not everything. And even if you hear it once, it might take 3 or 4 or 5 times to actually understand it. So
Okay.
that would be great. Thank you very much, Steve.
Great.
Appreciate the education.
And just, okay, I'm going to start sharing my screen here in a second, make sure I got the right screen. Okay. Okay. You should be seeing an Exhibit 1 with annual renewable energy credits, or Exhibit 1. Everyone's seeing this? Okay. So this is from the DLS RPS report. In general, what we're talking about here is a state level program that requires an increasing percent of renewable energy credits to be purchased and turned into the Public Service Commission for compliance every single year. And this has increased every single year since it was enacted in mid-2000s. Right now, it is on an increasing percent to 2030, at which point it levels off as a percentage of retail sales. Now, as retail sales increases over time, the total amount will increase with that, but it levels off in 2030. So the way it basically works is there are 2 tiers, tier 1 and tier 2. If you're in tier 1, you get it's sort of like the big tier, and the payments are higher and the percents are higher. Tier 2, it's a smaller tier and the payments are lower. So that's the basic split. Within tier 1, you have a couple different, what we call carve-outs is the term of art that has been picked over time. The big one is solar. There's a solar carve-out. So of the total, which is here, 35 up to 50% over the next 5 years. That's the total. I'm going to zoom in for you guys to see. Maybe this will help a little bit. Okay. So of this total, 35 to 50, solar of that 7 to 14 percentage points. So this is percentage points. There's a geothermal carve out. There's an
And Steve,
offshore. Yes.
Can I stop? The 14 and a half is our goal, which is a goal that we set a few years back, right?
Yes, that was 2019 was when I think we hit that 14.5. We tinkered with it after that, but I think the original went to 14.5 right around there.
That was the Clean Energy Jobs Act, and that was
Yes.
our goal.
So you think about it, it's like a stack. So you've got the total tier 1 that you need to hit. Inside that, you must hit a certain percentage of solar. You must hit a tiny percentage of geothermal. You must hit a percentage of offshore wind if it's built. We're going to skip that for today. And then the rest of it can be anything else that is tier 1 that includes onshore wind. That's a lot of onshore wind, but it also includes stuff like it technically includes solar. You have a bunch of different sources that can count. We have a very long list of things that count: geothermal, poultry, littered energy, ocean, fuel cell. But mostly and historically, it's been a mix of wind energy and then what was called black liquor, which is sort of a burning of a paper byproduct, and waste energy, which has now been removed. So it's a multiple different sources, and these percents require the purchase of these things called renewable energy credits, okay, by the people that sell you electricity. So if you sell electricity to Maryland consumers, you must purchase renewable energy credits and turn them into PSC for compliance. If you do not turn in your credit, you must pay the fine. The fine is the ACP, the Alternative Compliance Payment. Okay.
And to be clear, Steve, that's the utilities. That's the
people delivering you your power, and essentially, yes. So for the utilities, when they purchase standard offer service power, the price that they pay includes the cost for renewable energy credits
Right.
on the original sale. But at the end, basically, it all flows through. If you sell electricity to a Maryland ratepayers, one person must turn in a renewable energy credit for that sale, basically a certain percentage of it. So if you sell 100 units, of power or energy to Maryland ratepayers, and the percentage is 20%, you turn in 20 renewable energy credits. That very basically, I'm sort of glossing over a ton of detail, but that's the basic premise. So it's a credit-based system. How do you determine the price of the credits? That is, by and large, a mixture of things, but it's market-based. So there is a credit, people need the credit, they determine how much they're going to pay for it. I see your question.
Delegate Morgan?
Yeah, you do. Is that the SREC?
So yes, so the solar REC is an SREC. Everything else is a REC. An offshore wind REC is an OREC. So the the naming is typically falls along those lines. Okay.
Solar energy, yeah.
Okay, so since I'm really dumb on this shit. So the SREC is out there, and that's a solar.
Delegate Morgan, we are streaming live.
I apologize. So we get the SREC out there, and then how does the SREC relate to the CEF? Are they mutually exclusive?
Okay, I will get to that in just a minute as we move forward. Okay.
Thank you.
So the next thing I wanted to show you was an exhibit further down, although there is a better version of this in the fiscal note because it includes additional 1 year additional information. But okay. Oh my God, it's at the bottom. This exhibit. Oh, yeah. Okay. This exhibit here just includes 1 additional year of information since it was published later. This is what it costs to do. This is what the RPS costs in total every year going back from 2020 to 2024. The total cost of the RPS is a combination. It's the sum of the purchase price of the renewable energy credits, and then if there aren't credits available at a price you're willing to pay, the fine, the ACP. Okay, the credits don't go through the budget. They don't touch CEF. If you buy a credit, it doesn't touch CEF. If you can't buy a credit and you have to pay the fine, that fine revenue, that's what goes to CEF. Okay?
Alternative compliance payments, just so everybody knows. If you see
That's what goes to CEF. That is this revenue stream here. So in 2020, there's $100,000 or somewhere in there. 2021 was $77 million. 2024 is $362 million. So this is a relatively recent trend in terms of the amount of ACP that's coming through. But that is the current high-level RPS. I assume there are questions.
Delegate Naraki.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Steve, are all credits treated equally, meaning that, say I bought a credit for hydropower from the Conowingo Dam versus if I bought a credit for hydropower from the Hoover Dam out west? Is there any preference given to sources inside of PJM versus outside of PJM? Because I've gotten some sort of conflicting information on that. I'm just trying to wrap my brain around that.
Yes, so geographically, there are geographic requirements for the RPS in general. It varies by source. For tier 2, for your specific question, that's hydroelectric, and I'm pretty sure.
Or we could use whatever.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, I'll use something that's not an edge case. Okay. Most tier 1 sources, most things must be in PJM or delivered into PJM. So you can think the Northeast to Midwest-ish. Okay. In reality, most of them come from PJM or right next to it. You can't be out west, California. You can't get a California wind REC. It doesn't count, for example, right? You can't get anything that far away. It has to be relatively close. For solar specifically, it has to be connected to the electric distribution grid serving Maryland, and that usually works out to in-state, literally located within Maryland's geographic borders for solar. That is not the only one that's like that, but it is one of the few that is like that, and is the biggest source that is like that. But in general, it's like the general region counts.
Mr. Chair,
There
can I
is
ask-
no other preference other than that. Recs, there are different prices, but for different sources, they vary a little bit year to year. They're not all exactly the same. Some are cheaper than others year to year. By a little bit, there's a little bit of gap.
Steve, do you know what the reason was for that? I'm just trying to wrap my brain around that because to me, if you're offsetting carbon emissions, you're offsetting carbon emissions in the grand scheme of the pie, right? I mean, you're still doing it whether it's happening here or somewhere else. What was the logic for sort of treating things differently geographically? Do you happen to know like when this all was constructed, why that was done that way?
I wasn't here when it was constructed. I was still an undergrad.
That's fair.
Fortunately, my reason that I think about it for there being a reason that it's at least in the region is that we breathe the air that comes across from, the Midwest. So there is at least a local benefit, somewhat local benefit to it, in addition to it being part of the regional grid that we are part of for the most part. So there are, to me, that I think that those are the sort of the reasons, but I don't know beyond that. That's how I think. That's how I conceptualize it.
Okay. No, thank you, Steve. That was helpful for me to understand that a little bit better. Thank you.
Mhm.
Delegate Anderson?
Yes, how is the renewed interest in battery storage? Is battery storage going to be available for credits? And if so, how does that fit into this bill?
Okay. Battery is not in either of in the current RPS, nor is it in HB 345, the bill itself. They work together. Typically solar and battery do work together, but there is not a direct incentive in the bill for battery. I don't know if the bill as amended or introduced includes. PSC has some discretion on the incentive it can provide, and I don't know if buried in there, if it would allow them to offer an increased incentive for something attached to battery or not.
Steve, let me jump in. Andreas has his hand up. So
Yes,
he made
okay.
a motion.
And Ben has his hand up too.
Yep, and Ben does too. And Dwayne does too. Let's go with Andreas since he was first.
All right. So first of all, for the battery piece of it, battery piece conversation, it's not part of the RSP right now. And in reality, if you think about it, the RSP talks about resources. Batteries are considered resources for something. For other things are really a bank where you put energy in so they can tap into it later. So that's kind of the easier way to understand why batteries might not be directly into the RPS. As for the other question, sorry, I know that Steve answered it, but the one of the rationales for having it in within PGM, the RPS, or in some cases like solar within the state is to also incentivize that type of generation within the state. So that's why, for example, solar has to be either in the state or close enough that it's tapping into the distribution system, is to incentivize that type of generation within the state or within the area. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Andreas. Ben?
Mine's just on the RPS with storage. There is no RPS standard for storage. The state has a 3,000 megawatt storage goal that the commission has been tasked with developing programs to effectively incentivize enough storage to meet that goal that is cost effective. But for purposes of RPS, storage is not linked to that. There's no incentives given to storage for RPS, at least to my knowledge. So what you're talking, I don't know what the amendments do to the bill, but in terms of how RPS works today, you having storage does not really impact it.
Does that answer your question, Delegate Anderson? Okay. Very good. All right, any more questions on this? Steve, you
Nope.
want to keep on?
Yep, in the interest of time, I will stop talking about the existing RPS and maybe talk about now what the bill does. I know there's a lot in the existing RPS, but I'm going to try to move forward with the bill.
Okay.
There are no final amendments to the bill, to HB 345. There's no, through the amendment office, clean amendments. The sponsor has been in contact with me generally that what we're going to discuss here today, I will cover a few of the overall changes, like the important changes, but by and large, the bill's introduced. The pieces we're going to talk about right now are largely unchanged by the amendments. I just want to get the broad strokes of the bill, like conceptually, to you, and the amendments aren't going to fundamentally change that. So I think we're okay to move forward with how the bill kind of works. So I have a drawing for you all that I put together in Paint as a millennial.
I've seen it. It's a beautiful drawing. It's just it's a
I don't have any good tools here. They don't give me good drawing tools. But I
look at
wanted to put
that.
this together here. I put this together here to help conceptualize what HB 345 is doing versus what is occurring with some of the existing money. So we talked a little bit about the existing RPS, and if you can't buy enough credits, then you have to pay the fine, and that fine is the ACP. That ACP goes into CEF. Once it's in CEF, there are a whole bunch of statutory allocations for that money, and they've been changing year to year. There's a bunch of them this year that are new in the BRFA and other bills. They're trying to use that money. And it's through the budget process. It comes into CEF and it's in the budget and it goes out through the budget. And that's the main point I wanted to get across as it relates to the RPS right now. Because what the bill does is fundamentally different from that. So what the bill basically does is it packages ACP revenue, it packages franchise tax revenue from large data centers, and then any additional money to do what it's about to do that is required from the utilities through ratepayers. So it packages all of this money and it goes into an escrow account. An escrow account is not a budgeted fund. An escrow account operates outside of the state budget. Okay, so that's the main thing here is that ACPs would no longer be in the state budget.
They would no longer go to CEF, the strategic
They don't
energy.
go through CEF. They go to the escrow account.
Takes it out of CEF.
Yep. The escrow account then effectively funds 3 different procurements on an ongoing basis. And I'm glossing over a couple things here, but it does 3 things. It will pay for what the state has already built for existing solar on a date in the future. I think 1/1/28, like January 1, beginning of 2028. It will pay for that into the future because those systems still exist. It will pay for those. And then it's 2 new programs, and that's the bulk of the bill. The bulk of the language in the bill is about these 2 new programs. There's 2 solar procurement programs, basically. There's a distributed system program, which is smaller systems, and then there's a utility scale program, which are the larger systems. And I believe the amounts are defined. The size is defined. Just give me a sec. Okay. So qualifying distributed, those are the small ones. That's 5 megawatts or less. That's consistent with community solar and smaller. That's pretty big. I mean, that's still it's like 5 to 7 acres per megawatt, 7-ish megawatts. But it's not a vast, as far as you can see, field, a utility scale solar farm. So
rooftop.
Rooftop is in there too. So 5 megawatts and less and smaller is we're going up go up to 2,000 megawatts of that. Same thing with the utility scale, up to 2,000 megawatts of that. And this is all by 2035. So in increasing amounts over time, the state would set an incentive payment under these two sort of like broad tranches, right? They work differently. So inside the distributed system, the small system, PSC has the ability to set sort of sub-incentive payments by different types. So for example, a residential incentive payment could be one level. A community solar incentive payment could be another level. And that is recognizing the different economics and financials between the two types of projects. On the utility scale side, it's similar. It's not exactly the same. It's basically a competitive procurement every single year. So PSC would accept bids up to its capacity that it requires each year to meet the long-term goal. And then meet that capacity with the projects that it approves at a price that it approves for whatever it's getting. So for example, the incentive for a system that's situated on a brownfield could be one incentive amount. A project that is situated on flat ground that doesn't have any environmental remediation needing to be done could be another amount. So it would just be project dependent. So the main difference between what is going on in current law and what's going on in this bill is sort of that. In current law, the incentive is whatever they can get for their credits that they are generating. The solar farm generates power, it generates renewable energy credits, and tries to sell those credits for as much money as it can. And if it can sell it for the max for the farm, great. If it can't, then it makes less money. Under this program here for solar, for 4,000 megawatts of solar plus the additional, I don't know, 2,000-ish megawatts under the existing systems, somewhere in there. All of that would be sort of administratively determined by PSC. The amount would be administratively determined on an ongoing basis for those projects. So it takes it from a sort of market participant model where everyone is trying to come to, the market's trying to come to an agreed upon price based on supply and demand to something like this where you get your incentive payment up front and then you know what it's going to be for a fixed amount of time, and then that's what you get.
So Steve, it would be fair to say that the big difference here is that we're going from market directly to the Public Service Commission, which could make micro changes as they go to determine what's in the best interest of, the state as far as generation. If we need to put more in, whether it's community solar or more in rooftop solar or more in utility solar, it just gives them a lot more flexibility to make changes and set rates. Is that correct?
Yes, it does give more granularity to the incentive that can be provided across different types of solar. This has occurred in the past. So there have been attempts to do something like this in the past. For example, there was a sub carve-out that was attempted years ago to try to compensate residential. I think it was residential and very, very small solar siting or systems at a different rate than a utility scale solar system, recognizing that they are different. They have different economics. So this is the RPS is a bit of a blunt instrument when it comes to the dollar amount that you can sort of predict that you can provide. And it treats many energy sources the same. So that's what this is. That's the difference here.
Okay. Are there any questions on this aspect of the bill? And then we'll go into other pieces. Delegate Morgan.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. So, Steve, if I look at your little drawing here, we have CEF on top and we have SRECs. Will there still be CEF out there or just SRECs?
Under the bill, let's just say the bill becomes law. There will still be a CEF because CEF has two primary sources of funding, and they're both pretty big. The other source is RGGI funding, RGGI allowances, and that isn't touched by this bill. So CEF will still exist, and it will fund. RGGI funding has its own its own requirements. So basically SEEF has like, it's like one bucket, but there's two, there's like two funnels. Okay, so Reggie money has to go one way, ACP money has to go another way. So the bill basically peels apart, takes away the ACP piece, but the Reggie piece is left alone.
Okay, so if I understand, okay, that's good for first part. But the second part here is that then the SREC money is put into a escrow away
Yes.
from the SEEF. So the state would not then have the ability to go in like it has been rating the SEEF to go to the general fund. This SREC money is put aside, it would be untouchable for future actions like we just saw the SEEF money being moved from the SEEF to the general fund. Is that correct?
Is the ACP money. The SREC money, I just want to correct that. I think you're angling at the right. I think I take your point, but I want to be clear about what's going on. It's not the SREC money. It's the alternative compliance payment money. Yes.
That goes into the escrow account that then goes to the SREC. If I'm just
It would then
following
purchase, yes.
the money goes into, so basically that money then is put into a box that can't be touched outside of what's inside that box.
Yes,
Inside that
it's moved
escrow account.
outside of the budget process.
Right. So
Hence escrow account.
yeah, it says, so if I look at that then, just for clarity, 2,000 megawatts is more power than Calvert Cliffs produces. I looked up, Calvert Cliffs produces about 1,800 megawatts, and we're doubling down on that with solar. Is that a fair statement?
So the capacity is more, the power produced would be less. So I think we did the math on this, wasn't it? Calvert Cliffs is about 25% of Maryland's total energy needs. That's accounting for imports.
Yeah.
Back of the envelope math, I did 4,000 megawatts of solar. 4,000, the two.
Correct.
It's
Yeah,
about
double
10,
down.
it's about 10 percentage points, give or take, for a point of reference. And that's because, I mean, the sun doesn't shine at night and Calvert Cliffs runs at night. So that's the difference. That's why the nameplate capacity doesn't tell you the whole story. So what would happen?
Okay, no, that gets me tongue in cheek. It gets me to first base, and we'll keep going playing down the ball game. Thank
Okay,
you.
and Delegate Morgan, remember, I think, right, Steve, we're at like, what is our latest guesstimate? Maybe Ben, it's like 1.8 we're at already, or 1.7 or something.
Estimate for what? Sorry.
So total solar in megawatts that we are doing currently.
We're at about 1,400 on the net energy metering, which includes net like distributed solar and community solar. And if you give me another minute, I'll figure out what the utility scale is. So
Okay.
yeah,
But I'm in the ballpark. We don't
Yes.
necessarily.
I got about 2,300 megawatts is in the
23.
most recent report,
Okay.
Ben.
okay, the 23 it is.
All right, thank you. Delegate Stein.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Steve, could you talk about the current uses for the ACP proceeds?
Sure, just give me one sec to pull up a Excel file. I think that will have the information.
And also, while you're doing that, Steve, do you know, is this just solar ACP funding or all ACP funding? ACP.
This is all ACP funding. I'm almost positive it's all ACP funding. If it's not all, it's everything that's not. I believe it's everything.
Okay.
And it's definitely the big tiers, which are solar and tier one. If
Okay.
there's something missing, it was basically a distinction without a real dollar difference at this point. So this is the use of ACP revenue in 2025. This is the ACP. Why did that go away? Come here. Okay. Everyone should be able to see this. So this is the ACP account in SEEF. We're assuming. So this is the amounts in this year's budget. 198 million to MEA, 100 million to PS for for certain purposes MEA, 100 million for PSC. That's the ratepayer credit. That's the re-up of the ratepayer credit from last year. We got 20 million for DGS, 10 million for MDOT, higher ed research, couple different studies and planning. There's more information on this in a little bit in the BRFA text itself, has some of these amounts, but not all of it. Some of it's just kind of covered up. But and I think a portion of this is in the governor's bill. The governor's bill we'll be hearing next week. I think some of it is in here as well. But basically, they're using it for a bunch of different uses, in addition to transferring to the general fund of $259 million.
And also keep in mind, Delegate Stein and everyone, that there is a plethora of bills this year that are grabbing, a little bit here and a little bit there for C funding that will eventually end up dealing with some of those bills.
Steve, the $200 million that is allocated to MEA, I take it MEA uses that for a bunch of purposes, be it supporting renewable energy or energy efficiency or other things. Is that right?
Yes, I unfortunately do not know it off the top of my head, what is used for. Okay.
I know for storage, there's some little
I can give you some of the main pieces. Just give me a sec. Some of the main pieces. This is the gap financing for at-risk large-scale clean energy projects, the 70 million. This is my understanding of this is the administration's policy response to the shutting down or the mothballing of the ITC for solar that happened in last year's federal bill. Some of that's what this is going to be. I don't have full detail off the top of my head about what THEF is otherwise being used for, though. A bulk of it is listed here in the BRFA, but some of it is also in here, which doesn't have dollar amounts. If you want more clarity, we can talk offline, but I don't have it off the top.
Okay, that's fine. No, this is helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve, very, very much. This is great. This is great. Walking us through all of this. Delegate Boyce.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm so visual. So this is like opening my eyes. Are you going to send this to us? Because this becomes a good cheat sheet to write all over to add in like, the stuff.
I can send you this if you'd like, sure. Now, keep in mind that this does not reflect what the sponsor's amendments as the bill is introduced. But in general, it's going to be money into escrow across to these three programs.
Right. And so, and just to clarify, I think what Delegate Morgan was trying to say, just so that I understand, per every category, and thank the chair again for giving us this lovely cheat sheet, War and Peace novel timer. Go back to page. Okay. So between the solar recs, the geothermals of 2022, offshore, other tier ones, when they don't meet their levels, they have to pay the ACP payments, right?
That is generally correct. Right. There is no ACP for offshore wind, but the other ones you have an ACP.
Right, including geothermal.
Yes.
Yes, okay. So, but with that, given that it comes from all of these, we're saying that all the ACP payments now will go into an escrow just for solar, to purchase SRECs for solar.
I think that's a fair read, yes.
So when we say other tier one, what exactly are we talking about?
The things that people say are wind and solar. Or sorry, like I say, the things that people say are wind, and I'm stalling because I'm trying to get to a chart to show you. What it has historically been is this chart here. So you've got tier 2 is water, this green one is wind, this BLQ, this is black liquor. So it's a mix of things. This is in the PSC RPS report. and it
Okay,
changes over time. So you can see how like the different percents, like we're going up over time because we need more over time because the
Right.
overall numbers are increasing. And then the cheapest resources that are available make up the bulk of what is used in any individual year. And approaching 2022, wind was an ever-growing amount, right? So like it kind of depends. A lot of it, if it wasn't wind, a lot of it was basically something that burned. It was either trash incineration or black liquor, which also was burnt, or municipal solid waste. Basically, it was thermal technologies plus wind, were
Or
the
the other tiers,
other
where it
tier
says
one
other tier
sources.
one.
Yes.
And given that the other tier ones seem to be at a higher percentage, I guess I'm just, and I guess I get it, but it seems like, why, if all of these folks, with the exception of offshore wind, could be paying an ACP payment, why are we taking all the ACP payment to just do solar? I mean, I get because it's the bill generally, but would there be an argument to say, why wouldn't it be going to also, I don't know, more geothermal or something else? Is it just so that we can enhance solar and thereby meet these numbers or exceed these numbers for, I guess, 2020, I guess, 6 and beyond?
So, I mean, you raise an interesting point. It is picking solar to use that ACP revenue from. And if you see where's the bulk of the money,
Mm-hmm.
it's tier one. You might as well read this as tier one non-solar. That's
Mm-hmm.
another way to look at it.
Okay.
I mean, one of the reasons it's going into this is it's using the fund. The historic reason the reason you require, or sorry, the purpose in law for what you were supposed to use ACPs for was to encourage new or build new renewable energy sources.
Right.
Right. So as you have seen in recent budgets, that doesn't always occur. It's
Sure.
somewhat tangential related / budget balancing, right? So, but yet you are right, it is directing a non-solar revenue stream toward the purchase of solar moving
Okay.
forward. Yes.
And then my final question, Mr. Chair, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
So we do this, we put all the ACP money into this escrow that then buys more SRECs. And at some point, as this flow comes, is there a thought that at some point we would be reaching our goals per year, right? But at some point, then ACP payments would then go down or be non-existent because folks will be, well, at least the solar level may be meeting the goals, although maybe geothermal and the other tier ones still may not, they would still end up paying ACP payments, but there's not necessarily money that would be going into, for instance, a rec for geothermal, or I know we don't want other tier one, but other tier one, since they seem to be more. And I mean, I'm just making sure I understand. That is what I'm understanding, is that most of the ACP payments, regardless of who is paying them, is going to go directly for solar only.
To me, that sounds accurate. Tier
Okay.
one ACP is not guaranteed.
No,
It has been, it sort of came out of, it didn't come out of nowhere, but it has been a very large increase in just a couple years. It could go away depending on what other states do. I believe PSC may have their thoughts, but my thoughts are there's nothing structurally changing over the next, there would need to be a change to another state's law
right.
or ours for ACP to dry up entirely, because
But
we're
don't
in a
we
bit of a
also-
structural issue.
Steve, don't we also have another reduced cost because incineration is removed from tier 1?
That hasn't shown up yet because there's
Okay,
even if that will take a while to work its way through, and as far as showing up in our RPS reports and
Okay.
data.
okay. All
Let me-
right,
let
I'm
me,
sorry. I'm done. I'm sorry. I'm taking up too much time. Thank you.
No, it's okay, Delegate Boyce. And I think that Ben, did you want to respond specifically to Delegate Boyce's questions? Looks like you've
Yeah, I
Okay.
was. Yeah, so I think just to add a little more color to what Steve was talking about. So part of us being us, we are competing for our renewable energy credits against all the other states in PJM that also have an RPS standard. And is our understanding, doing a little bit of research, that the fee, the alternative compliance payment, that ACP that we have in law, is one of the lowest around. And so it is effectively cheaper for utilities. We've been seeing, or not just utilities, but also the energy suppliers. So everyone buying electricity in Maryland, it's just cheaper for them right now to pay this alternative compliance payment than it is to go and compete and pay a higher price than that. And that's part of why this ACP is structured the way it is. That was basically the state saying, from a policy perspective, we don't want to pay above this. But because of that, we're no longer basically you have this growth in ACP. And so until, to your point, if this is a successful program that with the solar being coming in, that should start to reduce, hopefully, the amount of ACP then that would be flowing in. That said, obviously, if the amount of ACP coming in is less than what we would have to pay the solar facility, then yes, we would have to collect that from ratepayers, which might be where your questioning was going. And then just, I guess, another clarifying point on the RPS standard. So you were asking about like black liquor and all them coming out. If those, as the RECs from those become ineligible for to be a part of our RPS standard, that means we have to get RECs from a more limited grouping of generators, which just means there's a higher likelihood than of the ACP being paid instead. And the other thing is, if we never get off, yes, and so it doesn't go away. It just means that it has to be made up from other sources. And that's also something I wanted to point out about the offshore wind, which is if offshore wind never develops, those percentages are just treated like tier 1 percentages.
Yep.
So if we never have offshore wind, then that 14, right? I forget what the number is, but I think it's 14% would have to come from out of the tier 1. So it doesn't, the stated goal in statute is not going down if these resources are pulled out of the standard. It just means that you have to get them from other resources.
Yes, maybe that's what I was trying to say. Okay, thank you.
very, very good questions, Delegate Boyce. I think it's important. And I would say too, that's the way the bill is written. Doesn't necessarily mean we have to adhere to it. But that's the way the bill was written. Delegate Baylor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Firstly, thank you, Steve. You've explained SREX and the ACP in like the 10 minutes better than anybody has thus far.
I concur wholeheartedly.
Yeah, no, that was amazing.
Thank you.
Just a few questions. This alternative incentive payment, I forget exactly what it's called, the administrative determined
Yes.
incentive. And this might be a question for you or Ben. How would the commission go through in determining that whatever that incentive is going to be? And that might be a conversation down the line, but I'm just curious to grapple with, like, what does that process look like compared to how we operate now under the
And how you would determine you mean how you determine?
Yeah, I mean, how is the
breakout
new
of
incentive how is the new incentive going to be administratively determined?
Ben, that's a big question, and I guess that
Yeah.
and there's a lot of latitude in the bill, right, for you all to kind of determine what you think is the most important. I will let you talk about it. I'll stop.
No, yeah, I think that's important to understand. So today, effectively, the price people will pay for a renewable credit is effectively determined by the market of credits that are available. up to that alternative compliance payment. If I'm assuming everyone is a rational actor, that none of our entities are going to pay above the ACP for a rec. So assuming that holds true, then the price cap is the alternative compliance payment. We'll take the ADI first. My understanding is that we, the commission, will have to determine that. How that's done is obviously still to be determined. That said, typically in this kind of a situation, we would have a proceeding to basically go through and figure out what's our methodology going to be for determining what the payments for these solar facilities are. And so we would need to establish a process and a set of rules for how we would calculate that ADI and how solar companies would get paid, guided by what's here in the statute. So that would be for the ADI half of this. And then there's the other half, which is the utility scale, 2,000 megawatts. My understanding of that is we will be conducting RFP style bids where the generator, we'll open a solicitation and the generators would say, hey, here's what I'm willing to develop at this price. And then I assume we would take least cost bids. I mean, subject to the rules that are set up around this, but I would assume take a least cost bid approach with something like that.
Yeah, and I would say, Delegate Bell, one of the really big important pieces of this, and please jump in, Ben or Steve, if I'm wrong, is that we are giving the PSC the ability to really make not only micro adjustments to SRECs, but kind of more significant, I wouldn't say massive macro adjustments, but significant adjustments. It gives them the latitude to help steer the state in a direction that makes the most sense. Is that fair, Ben?
Yeah, I think we would still, though, be procuring towards the goal subject to your off ramps. So I think that's important to understand. So I think there's a 5% cap of total bill in here, and I owe Steve what a total bill is. So for you,
$160 according to EIA.
Okay, so that'd be monthly average. And so, anyways, so that would be, and that sounds about right. Sorry. So that's for, I don't know if that applied to both the ADI. It only applies to one of the two.
It applies to the small, it applies to the distributed solar. So it applies to the small one. Is
Okay,
the
so
cap. There is not a total cap, cost cap on this one, on the bigger one.
And so if that's a worry from a policy perspective, then I would advise deciding what you are comfortable with us doing up to a point, to help. And we can talk through what those strategies might look like, but that's just something to be aware of as we go through this. Is obviously what we do will be guided by the policies and the guardrails you put in this statute. Obviously a bid is hopefully going to it's not going to be us trying to guess what people need. It will be the market telling us what they need to develop, which is good. But I think that is a important distinction there for you all to understand.
Got it. And if I could have one more question.
Absolutely. Go ahead.
This ADI, and I was trying to reread the bill, but as it relates to the capacity block for the varying different types of solar, I'm trying to think about how that would practically play out. Could you have differing incentive payments for differing types of solar compared to how it operates now?
Yes.
Got it.
I think that's exactly the point.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Point of it. That's those micro and sometimes bigger than micro, more like significant adjustments to be made.
Okay, thank you.
More commercial or rooftop or community, maybe.
That's helpful. Thank you.
Absolutely. You good, Delegate? Delegate Bailey, you good?
Yep.
Great. Okay. It is now 5:08, so we've been on for a little over an hour. I'm going to go to Vice Chair Guyton, and then we can have a conversation about how much longer we want to go, because this is a very big bill, and I think, Steve, we've gotten through maybe half of the big pieces of the bill, or a third.
This is the big piece. We can talk about the balcony solar if you'd like, and then those are the big pieces. Balcony solar, and then all of this are the two main pieces.
Well, why don't we kick it to Vice Chair Guyton, and then we'll go from there.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think in the interest of time, I appreciate the fact that Steve has been letting me hop into and out of his office all week talking about this legislation, and he has been amazing. In the interest of time, I'm just going to throw out what I would like to discuss more in the future, when obviously we're going to come back to this bill, but we don't have to have all the answers now, because I know it's 5 o'clock and we all have things to do. My question for you would be, not having seen the amendments that the sponsor may bring to us, is, as Delegate Boyce pointed out, if we start setting the caps for the SRACs at the level of the ACP, eventually the ACP money is going to go down, because there'll be no reason then, no incentive to buy those, to pay the compliance fees, non-compliance fees, if you can actually afford the SRACs. So in that case, when this money is going to be, if it works well, right, probably diminishing, we have two other possibilities for how to add money to this escrow account. One is through the franchise tax revenues that I'm assuming are coming from, it says over 100 kilowatts of data centers usually are the ones that would use that much energy, but we don't have those actually happening now. So that's sort of we talk about phantom load. This is a phantom load to this account at this point, I understand. The other one, the non-bypassable utility surcharge, I think we're going to need to talk a lot more about what that means and where that's going to come from. And my general question is, if we left those two things out, one, because we don't know if that tax revenue is going to come our way anytime soon, and the other because we may not want to have a non-bypassable utility surcharge on bills, can we still do this in an effective way with just the ACP funds?
Ben, can you structure a program? Can you run a program based on a year-old fund balance there? Because you need to know it to be able to.
I would need to know it, and I would need to, it would depend on how we structure the incentives and the payments. So if I make a commitment only with what is in escrow, and my understanding is that the payment has to, the agreed payments have to be based on what is known in the escrow. I need to think through this. This is me kind of just talking out loud here. But basically, we would be limiting our ability to run the program to what is available in escrow. So therefore, the commitments we make or the incentives that we structure would have to be in a manner that would never be such that if I ran out of money from escrow, I wouldn't need to get the money from somewhere else. That's the clean way of trying to say what I'm saying. That the purpose of the non-bypassable surcharge is, if you don't have ACP funds, you would have, because once we make the financial, I would say once we engage in a financial commitment, that will need to be honored. And so that would be the important distinction there. So I think the way this bill is set up was that payments were going to happen year over year for a set period of time. I think it's up to 15 years. And so therefore, let's say I used the ACP money in the first couple of years, but then ACP went away, then you would need to use ratepayer funds. I guess in the alternative, if those are completely cut out, then we would need to talk about either limiting the amount of solar procured based off of what I know I can pay over 15 years from a limited set escrow, or we would have to restructure those incentives to be more short-term payments, whether they be just a one-time bulk incentive or something different. But we couldn't follow the strict reading of the law as currently written.
And
I appreciate that. I just want to make sure everyone does. I mean, I want to make sure I understand and everyone else understands that what we're talking about doing here is adding a surcharge to everyone's bill. Is that accurate?
At some point,
what do you think that would be?
So I've attempted to do some estimates on possible bill impacts. I know Steve has that. Me and him have been going back and forth on that, because when I wrote that up, it was based off of my understanding of the bill, not what was introduced. And so I think there's been some confusion there with that analysis. But it's a very, I would say it is definitely an estimate made with a lot of assumptions.
And if I may add, Vice Chair, a couple things. One, you know, as I said, as I kind of alluded to, and with Delegate Boyce's question, like we can, you know, we can talk about making additions or changes to this bill. It does not have to be in the way it was submitted. That's number one. Number two, I think that the bill sponsor does have some amendments that either she's working on or that I don't know that we have them all yet, right, Steve? But
We do not have them.
when we get them, we can distribute them as well. And then it's in our, you know, it starts to become in our call as to what we like. I mean, I think that Delegate Boyce had some very, you know, some very good questions, and you have some good questions as well. I mean, our big priority, right, is to limit the kind of cost to the ratepayer. That is what we are trying to do. So, you know, if we have to make some tweaks, and I think that the bill sponsor is aware of that as well. So I don't know if that helps.
Would you like me to
Of course, thank you
stop
very
sharing
much.
screen for purposes of talking at the end here?
Yeah, if anybody wants to use your phone to do a little picture of
We'll
this.
send it around. I'll send it to your I'll send it to your account, and you can just send it around.
Great. Great. Okay, so a couple of other things, and I'll get to you in a second, Delegate Morgan. A couple of other pieces. One is the fiscal note implications. I've heard a lot of, you know, dollars thrown around, and I don't want to speculate because I don't know what they are. So I know, Ben, you're working on trying to kind of come up with what those numbers may be. Maybe we can get some different iterations as to kind of bring down what that ratepayer may impact may be, and or have a better idea of you know, how to minimize that. So that's the one piece. And then the other piece is the balcony solar piece, which I think that you all probably understand the idea of balcony solar, which I think is an interesting piece as well. I'll just mention it. It was mentioned in the bill hearing, but it's the idea of being able to use your own wires in your home to be able to, you know, plug in some small solar and be able to grab those electrons before they hit the grid or before they, you know, kind of behind the meter, which is kind of an interesting concept, especially if there's an outage of some kind. You can at least, you know, throw up a little bit of portable solar out on your balcony or your yard, your front yard or your backyard, and just get a couple of electrons. It's not a big piece, but if everybody did a little bit of that, it would go toward giving some independence in an electrical outage, and also just to kind of cut your bill just a little bit. So there are those two big pieces left, I think. And I know, Ben, you said you're going to work on kind of that a fiscal note when it's applied specifically to the ratepayer. Is that correct?
Yeah, no, I've come up with an estimate, but as I was mentioning, it was based off of the bill, is my understanding, before introduction.
Before
not
it's, yeah, and there's some amendments.
Not
So
what was
Yep.
introduced.
we'll
I
work
did
with-
mention to the sponsor that I would clarify. So in the bill is introduced, which I don't think was the intent. The chart there, the new two are additive. Okay, in the bill is introduced, they are additive to the RPS. In the amendments that are coming, they are basically a carve out of the existing overall percents, and that will matter toward the net ratepayer effect that is determined. And I didn't want to describe a ratepayer effect based on the wrong assumption of what that is. It's a big difference.
Right.
So
we're going to hold on that.
Yep. Mhm.
So we're going to hold on talking about that ratepayer until we have some more detail, so we can talk about it intelligently based on some facts. And then same thing with the balcony solar. I think that's pretty innocuous, but at the later date, we can schedule another time and we can talk about that in more detail if folks want to, or you can grab me and we can talk a little bit about it. Delegate Morgan, did you have a last question, or are we good to kind of call it for the night? We've gone for
No,
an
you
hour.
can, I was going to get to that total cost idea that Ben and them are working on, so we could wait for a while for that. Thank you.
Yeah, we want to do that right. So why don't we call it a day? And I want to say to the work group and everybody that was here, thank you very, very much for helping us to not only understand this bill, but understand all of it, which again is a lot. And a really big thank you to Ben and particularly Steve for breaking this down and making it digestible and understandable for us. This is all new subject matter. And again, what I said in the beginning of the call, it's going to take us. You're not just going to hear it once and get it. You're going to have to hear it 3, 4, 5 times for it to start to become second nature to understand all of this. So, and also to the subcommittee for being here and having so much interest. It's so exciting to have a subcommittee and a committee that's so excited about learning and learning and learning. So with that said, anything else for the order? Otherwise, thank you, everyone. And we'll circle back for next meeting.